ugly, incompetent, a gold digger. Get out of my way and get married quickly. My father spewed these harsh words at me as I turned 16. What era does he think we are living in? Unable to fight back, I registered my marriage with a man whose face I didn't even know. A loveless, bland marital life followed, filled with despair. Yet, life is unpredictable. Little did I know, a great reversal awaited me. My name is Lucy. At 35, I bought chocolates for myself, and when my husband asked, "What about mine?" I found myself apologizing. Sorry. I meant to buy some for you when I went to the store, but I got so caught up in picking out mine that I forgot. I'll make it up to him with some nice liquor next time. Yes, that's what I'll do. Nowadays, I live happily in a loving household, but as a child, I hated being at home. This wasn't the case until my sister was old enough to understand. I have a younger sister, Abby, 2 years my junior. From babyhood, she had distinct, well-formed facial features, and everyone expected her to grow up beautiful. Years later, she exceeded all expectations and became incredibly cute. Following our mother's advice, she started working as a child model. Though just local architecture-related commercials and event flyers, it wasn't the child star everyone imagines. However, for my parents, even Abby's minor successes were a great honor, and they paraded her around like a precious accessory, doting on her excessively. Conversely, their interest in me quickly faded. Maybe it was because I closely resembled my father's mother, a robust type from an earlier generation. Abby, with her modern small face and slender limbs, was the complete opposite of me. I felt out of place with my stockier build and rounder figure, even though we ate the same food and I hardly ever snacked differently from the rest of my family. I often envied Abby's looks, but even as a child, I knew comparing myself to others was pointless. I am me. I should focus on my strengths. Even though I was just a child, I tried to think this way, but my parents completely denied my existence. Well, she was the first child, sort of a prototype, you know? Unfortunately, the results were very poor. Once, while they were drunk in the living room, I accidentally overheard my parents slandering me. These words left a long-lasting shadow on my heart, reinforcing the idea that I was just a failed experiment. My beautiful mother was always confident in her looks and cared about her appearance, no matter her age. It would have been fine if she only held herself to high standards, but she was harsh on others too. She spoke with disgust about a neighborhood story where a mother of quintuplets went out to throw away trash early in the morning in her plain t-shirt and pajama pants. This neighbor's husband earned a high salary but was hardly ever home, so she often had visits from what seemed like her mother-in-law, and occasionally, yelling could be heard. Looking back, she was probably being mistreated. Even as a child, I could see she was always having a tough time. What's wrong with managing household chores in pajama pants? If anything, she deserved praise. It was natural, yet sad, that my mother didn't find my unattractive appearance endearing. As I grew up and started receiving an allowance, Abby got $10 while I got nothing. The disparity between us was obvious. For example, during meals, Abby's dishes would be filled with meat, which she liked, while mine were piled high with vegetables, which both of us disliked. My father said nothing about my mother's behavior, and Abby must have realized something was wrong, yet she seemed to enjoy my precarious position. I had no allies at home. Even when Abby broke something, she wasn't scolded, but I was harshly reprimanded for even the smallest mistakes with phrases like, "You're the older sister, you should know better," making me the scapegoat. Even with clothes, it's common for younger siblings to receive hand-me-downs, but in our house, it was clothes that Abby didn't want or that didn't fit her anymore that became mine. As a result, I always wore clothes that were too tight, making my already stocky and plump figure look even worse. Naturally, I became a laughingstock among my peers. My mother was to blame for dressing me in ill-fitting clothes, yet she joined in on mocking me. Both at home and outside, I was constantly compared unfavorably to my cute sister, and my originally cheerful personality gradually darkened. Even when interacting with friends, I thought things like, maybe this person also thinks I'm ugly, or maybe they would rather be friends with my sister. Looking back, it's clear that such paranoid thoughts were ridiculous, but at the time, they repeatedly crossed my mind. This negative mindset made it impossible for my relationships to succeed. Friends gradually decreased, but rather than feeling down, I preferred to isolate myself. I was tired of doubting people's feelings and interacting with them. Being alone was more comfortable for me. During these dark years of elementary and middle school, just before I was supposed to start high school, an incident occurred. It turned out that my parents hadn't paid my high school entrance fee. They had never intended to send me to high school. They would rather spend the money on Abby's dance and acting lessons. However, I somehow convinced them, and they finally agreed to let me attend a public high school if I passed the entrance exam. Amid my sister Abby's increasing entertainment activities, I was burdened with household chores by our parents. Despite the chaos, I desperately studied and managed to pass the entrance exams for a prefectural high school, as my parents had ordered. Now everything will be fine, I thought, naively trusting my parents. But they were not really parents, they were monsters who had merely given birth to me. Enrollment fee? Oh. I forgot. But it doesn't matter if you don't go to high school. With your looks, you're not going to have a decent life anyway. My mother said nonchalantly, without an ounce of apology. My father and Abby burst into laughter upon hearing this. Due to my late realization that the enrollment fee was not paid, I had to give up on starting high school. Of course, I could have saved up money from a part-time job and entered school a year later, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it. It felt like burnout syndrome. The path I had grasped through hard study was suddenly closed off. I don't care anymore, I felt defeated. No matter what education I get, I'll never be loved by anyone. I thought darkly. Adolescence is, why is it so easy to become negative? My parents would say sarcastically. Isn't it good you don't have to go to school? Now you can do household chores to your heart's content. I had become so resigned that I thought, maybe this is the life for me. I had no energy to go out to work, nor the vitality to think about leaving home. In retrospect, I was probably on the verge of a mental breakdown, living day by day like a robot just doing what my parents told me to. Then one day, my father suddenly said, "Tomorrow is your 16th birthday, isn't it?" Yes. Although my father had been ignoring me lately, the fact that he mentioned my birthday made me unexpectedly happy. My birthdays had always been ignored, but would they celebrate it this year? Was it because I had been working hard on the housework? My heart fluttered with faint hope. Then, get married quickly. A daughter who is ugly, incompetent, and a money waster is a nuisance. What? My father casually ordered me to get married, as if he was sending me to the store, and I was dumbfounded. Speechless and stunned, I watched as he, without even looking me in the eyes, demanded, "Register the marriage tomorrow." Wait. What do you mean, Dad? There's someone I want to get along with to help advance Abby's career. It seems the son of a contact at the entertainment agency is of the right age. Why does that mean we have to register our marriage? At a drinking party, I said, "My eldest daughter seems to like your son's photo." It led to talk of marriage. I felt an unprecedented disgust seeing my father so cheerful. I had never seen this man's photo, and here my father was, happily discussing selling his daughter. The man wouldn't possibly accept marrying a woman he had never seen, not in this era. Despite everything being so unbelievable. The son likes your photo too. It's a miracle someone approved of you with your looks. Lucky you. For the first time in a while, my father looked me in the eyes and smiled broadly. Me, liked? That's impossible. After all, I've always been told by everyone that my appearance is unfortunate. Liking me, no offense, but he must be quite undesirable. Maybe he's desperate for any woman, or perhaps there's a more sinister plan behind it. I was sure there was a catch. I wanted to say no, but But when I tried, my father threatened, "If you talk back, I'll kick you out," and I had no choice but to be silent. Thus, I was forced to sign the marriage registration. Abby looked on, clapping her hands and laughing as if it was the funniest thing. In that moment, I cursed my weakness and the fact that I was born into this family. So I was registered to marry some son, whether he was important or not, I couldn't even tell. I was taken to a new home prepared by his parents, and there I met my husband, Ben, for the first time. Ben, 10 years my senior, was a very plain-looking man, not particularly gloomy, but lacking in spirit. I am not a beauty myself, so I couldn't say much, but he didn't seem like someone I could fall in love with. He, too, had a poor relationship with his parents, and his in-laws were glad he was leaving their house, saying, "We were glad to get rid of him." Ah, birds of a feather. As I realized this, I felt a profound emptiness. Were we both just inconvenient to be married off? The life with my husband began undesirably, and for the first month, we only exchanged morning greetings and said good night, nothing more. We ate separately, and I tried as much as possible not to meet his face. But one day, my husband said something unexpected. "I realize you don't think highly of me. You must have been tricked by your parents into marrying." What? It was true, but I hesitated to agree outright. However, he seemed to understand everything just from my reaction and smiled. "You don't have to answer. But I truly liked your photo." "No, that's a lie. How could you possibly like me? Abby is much cuter." "No matter what you say, I felt something when I saw you. Now that we're married, I feel it even more. Maybe it's because our circumstances are similar. I was drawn to your character." Looking straight at me, my husband's words left me speechless. Between disbelief and his eyes, which didn't seem to be lying, I was confused. I had never even had a first love. Was this how love was supposed to happen? If you dislike it, you can decide to divorce. I have prepared the divorce papers here. But, if it's okay with you, why not start as friends instead of as spouses? My husband said with an embarrassed smile, and I felt my heart flutter just a bit, a secret even now. But at that moment, his offer to be friends instead of spouses moved me with his inclusiveness and kindness. Maybe it was worth giving this relationship a chance. From then on, we started eating together. There was no formal arrangement, and even after learning of my husband's kindness, I didn't have the courage to get close to him immediately. It took time for us to come together. But gradually, we started having conversations about the weather and temperatures, and as we learned about each other's preferences, being together didn't seem so bad anymore. The invisible walls between us thinned, and before we knew it, we were sharing meals and watching TV together. It turns out, we both liked books and had many things in common. As my husband had initially said, both of us had been treated as nuisances by our parents, and our values and thoughts were similar, making it more comfortable to be with each other than anyone else. After living together for 1 year, then 2, and on the 4th year, he proposed to me, and we truly became a couple. Is it strange to have a proposal even though we are already married? It's okay, because we were always an odd pair. We carefully redid everything we had skipped over, like dating and proposals. Even after 10 years, our parents had never come to see how we were doing, and we were living happily with our children in peaceful days. My life wasn't so bad after all, when suddenly, a famous celebrity was reported to be arrested by the police. It seemed that another celebrity involved with this one might also be implicated in the crime, and every day, the television buzzed with gossip magazine articles. This should have been a world unrelated to us as a couple, but among the names that came out in a domino effect, there was my sister's name, Abby. She was an actress in title but was hardly working or active in entertainment, though she was technically signed with an agency and occasionally did extra-like work. Her notoriety as an actress was virtually non-existent, yet her fame as a criminal was suddenly soaring. She was photographed entering a club packed with prominent men, sticking close behind a famous actress from her agency. Although she managed to navigate through the criminal acts without being charged, anyone could see she was involved. The person who leaked this photo was a classmate of my sister's who worked at the nightclub. This classmate had always disliked my sister and, having spotted her at the club, secretly took photos and shared them with friends saying, "She seems to be up to no good." The photo quickly spread, and someone sold it to the magazines, and that's how this commotion started. As her sister, all I could say was, "Oh dear." Well, I thought I had no involvement and it didn't concern me, until suddenly, my parents showed up at our house. As soon as I opened the door, my mother, with tears in her eyes, clung to me saying, "Help, Lucy." My father desperately supported her. She looked gaunt and aged far beyond her years, her hair damaged and thinned with gray. "What are you doing here?" "I don't remember asking for help. We have no one else to turn to but you." "What?" Seeing my bewildered expression, my father began to explain. It turned out, Abby had been arrested just the other day. Being an unknown actress, it hadn't made the news, and I was unaware. As they say, you can't keep secrets when people talk. Even I, her sister, was unaware of information that Abby's classmates seemed to have keenly obtained. With tales added to this unreported information, Abby's misdeeds had become well known in the neighborhood. As a result, my parents were treated like outcasts, with their home vandalized and plagued by silent calls and graffiti. "We can't live there anymore. Why did she do such things? I wish I hadn't given birth to her. My only daughter is you." With that, my mother broke down crying and embraced me. "Please, I can't live in that house anymore. Let me stay here. Let's live together happily." Who are they to say such things? I quietly grabbed my mother's shoulder and detached her from myself. "Lucy? I don't remember ever living happily with you. What are you talking about? We were a happy family." "That's right, Lucy." The confusion on their faces was clear. They didn't want to upset me. If we were a happy family, I wouldn't have had to marry like this. You sold me for the sake of my sister. But you're still together with your husband, right? All's well that ends well. My father laughed, and I was so angry that I pushed him away. "Don't joke with me." "What do you mean, all's well that ends well?" "It only turned out okay because my husband happened to be a good person. If he had been a terribly wicked man, I would have been in hell. What do you think people's lives are? A family built on someone's sacrifice deserves to be broken." I raised my voice and let out all my feelings. Tears welled up unexpectedly. My husband, who had silently moved next to me, gently held my hand. Forgiving people is also important. Lucy. Annoyed by my father's patronizing tone and cheap smile as he tried to calm me, I threw back a retort that I had kept silent for too long. "Well, why don't you two go live with your various affair partners then? Forgiving people is important, right? Why not forgive each other's mistakes?" My words made them freeze. With pale faces, the couple looked at each other. "What, huh? You thought I didn't know? Both of you had affairs, right? It seems like neither of you realized you were betraying each other." Yes, both of my parents had taken lovers. They both thought no one knew, but I, and probably my sister too, were aware of it. Not just the parent-child relationship, but the marital relationship was also in ruins. Really, what part of this was a happy family? "You were betraying me," my mother shouted loudly, "and you were the one," my father retorted. I watched their mudslinging match with cold eyes. When I sarcastically said, "Forgiving people is important, right? Why not just forgive each other instead of fighting?" They were silenced, unable to utter a word. "I don't want to be involved in your farce anymore. Stay out of my life for good. I don't care if it's being shunned or whatever, just go to hell. I'm not bound by you anymore." I spewed years of pent-up anger at them. Realizing they were in an unbelievable relationship, they desperately pleaded for my forgiveness. How ugly. Naturally, I rejected their pleas and declared, "If you try to involve me further, I'll take it to the authorities." Well, I said I'd take it to the authorities, though I didn't have any specific place in mind. The police wouldn't be reliable. But you know, appearing strong is important. Whether my words had an effect or not, I conveyed that there was no recourse for them, and they slumped down on the street. "Let's go," my husband said, urging me back inside the house. I obediently let him lead me back in. After a while, I could hear my parents sobbing and calling my name outside, but I didn't open the door. Later, about a month after this incident, I received a call that my parental home had burned down in a suspicious fire. I don't know if it was related to my sister's situation, and no culprit was caught, but the house was certainly vandalized. My parents, despite their discovered affairs, chose not to divorce. My mother, proud of her appearance, suffered burns on her face, not severe, but somewhat keloid. Whether that was the trigger or for some other reason, one day my father left the house without saying anything, abandoning my mother. My mother seemed to believe it was because her face was no longer beautiful, and she, who used to love going out, almost stopped going outside. Originally, as a couple who cheated on each other, it's more like they were tired of being together than it being about looks, but the truth of that is known only to God. However, I probably know more about my father than my mother, who was unaware of his cheating. Father, too, had been greasing the palms of important people with money borrowed from loan sharks to promote my sister. With my sister's case, he lost his job, incurred a huge debt, and suffered through days of debt. My sister, after serving about a year and a half in prison, perhaps due to lack of money, started appearing in dubious videos. I've heard she's mentally ill, but that's no longer my concern. What goes around comes around. And I plan to watch their fate from afar. Meanwhile, I'm now blessed with 4 children, living hectic days. When the youngest were born as twins, it was really tough. Since I only finished middle school and my husband finished high school, we were worried. Can we afford to raise 4 kids? But we both worked hard to obtain qualifications, and now I work as a medical administrator, and my husband is a manager at a meritocratic, up-and-coming call center that doesn't care about academic background or nationality. Yes, studying while raising kids and being pregnant was tough back then. My husband was busy with job hunting but supported me a lot, and I'm so grateful. He's cooperative with both childcare and housework, and though our marriage started weirdly, I'm proud to be with him. In that sense, maybe I should even thank those two. My husband not only dotes on the kids, but still cherishes me like a lover. It's a bit embarrassing, but even at this age, we occasionally go on dates, to the movies, cafes. It's like a student's date, but for us, who got married without such experiences, it's precious time. I hope we continue to care for each other and cherish our family. I hope tomorrow will be another happy day. That's how I live each day, cherishing it.